But right now we have a very informative guest. His name is Alan Mendenhall. And Alan Mendenhall wears a lot of different hats. And always a pleasure to talk with him and have him on the show. Hey, Alan, I hope you can hear us. How are things going today?
They're going very well, Donna. Can you hear me okay?
I certainly can. Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Awesome. It seems to do a little better when I have the phone on speaker.
Okay. Well, that's fine. That works for me as well.
Alan, I saw that, and I was looking at your Facebook page a little bit earlier today, and I'm trying to pull it up right now, and I don't see it. Do you mind telling the folks about you?
Oh, well, I am an associate dean at Jones Law School at Faulkner University in Montgomery, and executive director of the Blackstone and Burke Center for Law and Liberty, which does three things. We run seminars for judges. We run a Sir Edward Cook Fellowship program for law students, and we do educational programming in the field of civics, so a bunch of civics education, which is very important these days when students in particular are failing to get good civics education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I know you probably haven't heard, but there's an election coming up in a few days.
There sure is. Well, we've got midterm elections. We got federal positions. We have state positions. It's an exciting time. So next Tuesday is the big day, and there are a lot of seats up. So all 435 seats in the House of Representatives, the U.S. House of Representatives, are up, and 35 of the 100 seats in the U.S. Senate are up for election. We got 39 gubernatorial races going on, so we're going to see a lot of activity. It should be exciting to watch. Everyone's talking about how this election may be a referendum on Trump's presidency. Trump himself has said that. So there's a lot to look for. The Senate, the U.S. Senate is, in particular, the thing that most people will be looking most closely at. That's because there are the Republicans currently enjoy Senate majority, and if something were to happen with the Supreme Court, for example, so the Republicans have a 51-49 majority. Actually, two of those Democrats are independents, but they caucus as Democrats. But let's say something were to happen to Ruth Bader Ginsburg or Justice Thomas were to retire or anything like that, we would face another Kavanaugh situation, and we'd have to go for a confirmation. And the Republicans want to keep that majority going into any kind of Supreme Court battle. And also, people forget there are a lot of lower federal courts all across the country that need to get filled. So even if the Republicans lose the House, which people are forecasting will happen, they will most likely keep the Senate, which will be important for them insofar as the federal judiciary is concerned. I know there are a lot of tight races. We talked about Joe Manchin's race last time. I think when we spoke last time, Kavanaugh had not yet been confirmed, and so there was a question about whether Kavanaugh was going to vote yay or nay, and I think he played the right card by voting yay, the only Democrat to do so, because now, according to some polls, he's jumped up to a double-digit lead, and his opponent is Patrick Morrisey, was a former AG there, former Attorney General in West Virginia, was a fairly popular guy and very involved in conservative circles nationally. But it appears that he's going to lose that to Manchin, and so I think Manchin played that correctly. I don't know if you've noticed this, but Nick Saban is out campaigning for Joe Manchin too. So one thing that I would see is I would be curious to see if Manchin, having won the race, will decide to become a Republican. That's something that will be interesting to watch. Other races, the Arizona Senate race, looks as though, there are a lot of different polls out there. I see some with Republican Martha McSally up and some with the Democrat Kristen Sinema up. So that looks to be a neck-and-neck race. And then Nevada, too, Jackie Rosen's the Democrat and Dean Heller's the Republican. And again, in that one, depends on which poll you look at. Some show the Democrats leading, some show the Republicans leading. So that will be interesting to see. Unfortunately, Doug Jones' seat is not going to be up. We won't be voting on that until 2020. But it'd be nice to have him out of there. So there's just a lot of fun things to look for.
There are, but do you really think it's as close as they say? I don't know. I've been polled before, and I don't know. The questions that were asked were almost like you were back in grammar school listening to a true and false question, where you couldn't figure out what they wanted you to say. I don't know. Even if the polls are in our favor, I think that it's going to be a huge win for the Republicans.
Well, it's funny because you look at the different polls and you see a wide variety. Polls shouldn't be that diverse for the same races. I mean, if you go to Real Clear Politics, they have a list of the polls, and they break it down by the Senate and the governor races and the House polls and all that. And you can go race by race and just look at all the polls: CNN, Emerson, Metro News, ABC, New York Times, local polls, Fox News, whatever. And they vary quite a bit. I mean, in the same race, you'll see somebody that's up plus 18, and then only up plus 8, or somebody that's up plus 4 and being down plus whatever. I mean, it really is curious how these polls cannot appear consistent.
No, they're nowhere near close.
They're not. I mean, so you almost have to poll the polls. In other words, take a sampling of 10 polls, and then among those polls, figure out some kind of mean or median to determine what the reliability is. So clearly our polling methods are not what they used to be, but I think for the purposes of this election, that just creates a little more excitement, because we really don't know exactly what's going to happen. As we saw, in the 2016 presidential election, Trump picked up all kinds of states, won all kinds of states we weren't expecting him to win: Florida, Wisconsin, Michigan, things like that. So that's something that makes the watching a little more exciting.
I think so too. But do you think the face of the election has changed just from 1 year ago? Are you seeing a momentum in one way, maybe a little different than what was predicted?
Well, I think these days with races, I mean, it's week to week. I mean, if not day to day, the media, the 24-hour media news cycle just makes stories come and go so fast that, I mean, I think there probably is a difference from a year ago for sure, but there's also a difference from like last week. I think that the Kavanaugh hearing,
that was the major difference right there.
Conservatives who had become disengaged, let's say, or apathetic, I think that motivated a lot of them to go register to vote. And whether it carries through all the way till the midterm elections remains to be seen. But you've got conservatives looking at the migrant caravan and trying to drum up support for that. You've got the left trying to drum up support on things like the bombings that were sent, trying to link the bomber to conservative right-wing politics, I think erroneously, obviously, but both sides are trying to stir up whatever the controversy of the day is in order to get their voters out.
I totally agree with you, but you know something? I'll have to say this, and Facebook and just people that you talk with out in the in everyday life, when the threat of the bombings or the packages that were supposed to be bombed, a lot of people were very suspicious of that from the get-go.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it would be totally wrong to take somebody who is deranged enough to send bombs to public officials and make that person representative of an entire, I mean, that's just a dishonest move. And any attempt to do that is really more about provoking or inciting, inflaming the passions than it is about really getting at the truth or...
well, something, a lot of people would say that rang true with the Kavanaugh hearings.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up, because had the media and the left been that concerned, I mean, they were calling Kavanaugh a rapist and all kinds of irresponsible things like that. Had they been that concerned about it, we would still be having an investigation. They would be reporting reporting on Kavanaugh every day.
Yeah.
But as soon as the confirmation happened, we forgot it. If they really believed that these accusations were true, they would still be digging. But they revealed their true colors because you don't hear a thing about Kavanaugh now. That's done. That confirmation happened. Now they're moving on to a new political battle. But if it had been all about the truth to begin with, then that would still be front page news. People would be digging, but they know that those accusations are unfounded. So they know there's no point in trying to dig and verify them.
Well, I'll have to tell you, Alan, had it happened to me, I wouldn't shut up. You would still see me out there.
You would still. That's exactly right. Yep. Had there been merit to those accusations, we would still be seeing people banging the drum, sitting out on the Supreme Court protesting. But
Right.
because there were no foundations for those accusations, we don't see that, and the media just seems to have completely forgotten that situation was a big deal just 1 month ago.
Yeah, it didn't work. But now, what's the next step for that? I mean, the election's not over yet. Is there something else up the Rent-A-Mob sleeve?
Well, I think that's what that will be interesting to see. It used to be that there were October surprises. Now our attention spans have become so short that we have
That could be tomorrow.
the day before surprises. the day before, because in 3 days people tend to forget, or in 1 week people tend to forget what the main story was a week ago. It's just, like the Kavanaugh thing seems like ancient history, but it was less than a month ago.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Alabama politics before I let you go. Walt Mannix was on the show yesterday. And, of course, he didn't seem he seemed a little more workable, should I say. He said, if he doesn't win, that he will work, with Kay Ivey if it doesn't happen. So what do you think is going to happen there?
Well, I think Kay Ivey is going to win that handily. I don't think she has much to worry about there. And so that's really what I think. I think and maybe this is just me being a lawyer, but I think the most exciting race to watch is the Alabama Supreme Court Chief Justice race. That is the one where, of course, in the Republican primary, Tom Parker defeated Lynn Stewart, who is the current Chief Justice, and he is running against Bob Vance, who's comes from a well-known family. His father was a judge who was actually assassinated. But Bob Vance ran against Roy Moore in 2012 and didn't lose by a whole lot. And he has outraised Tom Parker by a lot. And what's very interesting is that in that race, Tom Parker is getting a lot of support from people like trial lawyers who typically are associated with Democratic candidates, whereas Bob Vance is getting a lot of support from the general business community. So it's almost like a reversal. And I think that race is going to be fairly close. I think Tom Parker is going to pull it off. The Democrats haven't had a person on the Alabama Supreme Court since 2011, since Sue Bell Cobb resigned as Chief Justice. I think she had been Chief Justice for about 3 or 4 years when she resigned, and that was the last time a Democrat has sat up there. The entire appellate court system, both the Alabama Court of Civil Appeals, Criminal Appeals, and Supreme Court, is populated by Republicans. So it would be a shock to have Vance win that race. But again, he has raised a lot more money than Parker has, and it's another one of those races where, who knows what the polls mean. But I think it'll be close. I think Tom Parker will win.
I think so, too. Now, Tom Parker will be on the show tomorrow at 2:30. So everybody make sure you stay.
Hello.
I'll do that. And everybody make sure you stay tuned to that as well. I tell you what, it's a busy, busy time. I think we probably...
Well, you've got such a great show. You got a great show today. You've got some great people coming on. It's an exciting time.
It really is. I'll tell you, everybody wants to be out there and they want to be... and that's what this show is all about. I have folks like you who are so knowledgeable about the election and things that are happening. I mean, you don't have to hear any hearsay. Just listen to the show because we get the best. We got the best audience, too. You know that?
Yeah, you've got a great audience.
They are absolutely awesome. I'm always glad to talk with them. Okay, just about 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes left in this segment.
Okay.
And so let's talk a little bit more. I don't think we have to beg anybody listening to this show to vote. Do you? I think they're all going to get out there and do it.
I think that's probably right.
Do you think there will be any other surprises that are going to be happening?
Well,
You just don't know, do
I
you?
think if there are surprises, they're they're going to be. I think they're going to be in the some of the federal races. I don't think there will be any surprises here in Alabama, but you just never know.
You don't.
A surprise would be like if Ted Cruz loses to Beto O'Rourke or something.
Oh, wow. And talking about Ted Cruz, what about the event with Ted Cruz in Texas with President Trump there? What a crowd.
Yeah, I know.
I couldn't believe it.
I mean, Trump is out there campaigning for a lot of candidates, but he's also out there campaigning for himself. I think Trump realizes, I mean, he's got a lot of political savvy for somebody who was never a politician before he ran.
Well, as a businessman.
And he understands that you've got to drum up support and keep it up. And he understands that a lot of people, whether it's true or not, will interpret these midterm elections as a referendum on his presidency. So he's got to go out and drum up support among his base.
Well, the same amount of people, ex-President Obama also had a rally, and what was less than 900 people there or something like that, and there were thousands.
Like the Hillary Clinton rallies, I remember seeing like the actual photos when they would back up and show from distance, and it was just 200 people standing right in front of a stage that was just blocked off, and all the cameras were surrounding that, versus a Trump rally where he's packing stadiums.
Yeah. I mean, really.
And doing flyovers in the plane. It's somewhat amusing.
Well, I mean, it's just nice. The everyday person like me is actually being listened to for the first time, I believe.
Yeah, I think that he...
We feel like we're part of it.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, and I think he makes an effort to present himself as a spokesperson for the people who feel disenfranchised or feel marginalized or feel that the establishment figures have had control for so long and that they were powerless, that the people felt powerless in the face of those sort of insurmountable authorities in the corporate world and big government, and you had massive federal agencies with all their functionaries and tentacles in all the state issues, and Trump came in promising to roll all that back and to restore power to the people, and that's a popular message. It's one that, again, it's not a message that's just new to America. You look back to Magna Carta, English Bill of Rights, all the Mayflower Compact, all the founding documents. I mean, this is a theme that is recurring throughout Anglo-American history. Of course, the Anglo-American experience informs the American government, and whether Trump knows it or not, he's tapping into an ancient history and reformulating it and repurposing it for our own time.
I think so too. Well, I'll tell you what, the economy's doing better. We're happy. Oh, by the way, we've been working months to try to find somebody to work on our house. We bought my granddad's old farm. We finally have somebody who can do it.
Great.
So we began this Monday. Well, I mean, it's a great thing to know the economy is better, where people were so booked up with jobs, So anyway, he started Monday.
Yeah, and I know the stock markets have been a little bit erratic lately, but the stock markets are not signals of what an overall economy is doing. Of course, the overall economy, job rates and all those kinds of things affect the stock market, but the stock market is not itself representative of the economy writ large. The stock market is its own thing. So even if the markets are kind of erratic, that does not mean that the economy itself is not on the rise, because it clearly is.
It doesn't. We have retirement. It's a little nest egg. And the previous 8 years, the president we had before now, I mean, we were losing money. In fact, we were just at the point, let's just go ahead and draw it out while we can. But the money we have now, we're not losing money. I mean, even though the news media is talking about, different things, it's doing pretty good. I mean, it's a steady growth, and that's what we like, a steady growth.
That's right.
Right. Absolutely. Alan, thank you so much for being on the show today. I wish I could have you longer, but boy, I'll tell you what, election time, we got to kind of cram y'all in and out. I'm sorry about that.
Well, I'm going to go pour myself a cup of tea and keep listening to the next the next hour or so, because it sounds like a great one.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And let's go ahead and set up a time for next week, and let's communicate over email, because after the election, I'd like to have you back on.
Sounds good, Donna. Take care.
You too, Alan.